Welcome to a new episode of Advancing Consciousness series with Franco Di Nicola. This is a place where people can come to gain further insight and clarity as to what is going on and how we can shift things on a personal and global level, while also accessing higher levels of consciousness and awareness. We bring this series to you free of charge so that many are able to access this information. However, if you resonate with what Franco shares and you would like to support his work to get more content out, contributions are welcomed and greatly appreciated. A link is in the description and will be provided in the chat if you feel guided to do so. Also, we have many previous workshops, such as the most recent, Bringing Out the New You to Play in the New World, along with our membership program, Let's Talk About You, where like-minded people come together bi-weekly to talk about the topics requiring deeper understanding and clarity. All of these are available on Teachable, and we encourage you to check them out as they are great resources at very affordable prices to assist in better understanding this human experience. The Teachable link will also be provided in the chat and is also in the description. And lastly, don't forget to share. As more of us come together who are creating shifts in themselves, the more effective it will be to shift things globally. Thank you for joining us and being part of the change. Enjoy today's broadcast.
Welcome to another episode of Advancing Consciousness series, episode 19, and we're doing part 2. And we are in part 2. We're carrying on addressing the questions that have come in for the last several episodes and parts so that we would be able to kind of expand certain inquiries and address certain the questions and so forth that have come about. So we're going to carry on. I mean, we have another 81 questions that are in the queue besides the ones that we did in part 1. So our intention is to cover as much as possible today and the next episode, or part 3, which will be on Thursday coming up. And then after that, we will do another meditation coming this coming Saturday. And that one will basically be posting shortly. And that is part 3, because each one has a different stage of activation. So participate. That'll be at 2 p.m. Eastern time, and all the information will be provided. We'll be posting it most likely either later today or tomorrow at this point so that you can share it and so forth. It looks like we're streaming on Facebook and YouTube today, and of course Twitter and LinkedIn. So whatever little glitches that we were having with Facebook may have been resolved. So we tested everything out. It worked before, and it came on. So here we are. So we're going to continue with the questions and so forth. And if there's any comments, like I said, Kimberly will manage it from where she's at, and so the communication will be from her and not from myself at this point. So before we get started, I wanted to address in the actual questions, I wanted to kind of remind you very powerfully what's really going on in the whole dance at this point in time. Now, this information that is being shared is really, like I've said before, triggering your own knowing within you. Now, the purpose of addressing all these different topics and taking a broad expanded look and having a deep look under the hood of how things work without reinforcing any form of polarity, because it puts us in a disempowered state if we're playing with polarity. It does not bring that higher aspect of ourselves fully in our driver's seat. So it's very instrumental. So right now we're going through a lot of interesting experiences. Like I've said, massive polarity, massive reinforcement of one side to the other side, and both of them in one way or another either have fear or anger that's involved. And also the whole idea of suppression, restrictions, and all of that, which are all emotionally charged in a very powerful way, which keeps us very much in the old program of the inverted matrix, the inverted 3D and 2D state. So we have chosen collectively to move out of it. So it's so instrumental for us to understand our current reality from a bigger perspective, from a clearer perspective, without using any stories, programs, and belief systems that we've carried on either from generations or that are being streamed at this point in time from any sides. I'm not saying that there's value in any of those. It's a matter of not giving ourselves away to one side or the other, meaning that we're either going fully mainstream, whatever the narratives are, or we're going to go to the other side where, we're going through the awakening state, but now we're still not through that bigger perspective, that true knowing of yourself, and you're now going into either fear or fighting whatever's in the main stream about it. Because right now there's a lot of things coming up in the sense of what is being rolled out, how things are being pushed, a lot of the destabilizing that's happened within our economy and within even our health measures and so forth, being cooped up and whatever else that we've gone through. And, even though that's easing up in some degree, but there's a lot of underlining agendas coming up to the surface at this point in time. What I wanted to make very clear is that what's important for us is to realize our reality, and that the reality was co-created. It doesn't matter what the agendas were. It does not matter how it came about. It does not matter what journey we had. It does not matter how long we've been in it, how deep we've been in it, what polarization has been in it, or anything of that nature. That does not matter. What we adopted as a way of life does not matter either, because if we adopted that as a way of life, that's great. It gave us the experience we needed. It brought us where we are today. But where are we going to go from now? This is the thing, is where do we go from now? What is really taking place at this time? It's an opportunity that we've provided ourselves to be able to really tap into our reality capacity creation. Meaning that in one way or another, you get to see how you are very key and instrumental in redesigning your own reality, your reality around you, and the collective reality. Some of us have taken on a very big task and saying, okay, I am now going to go through the experience, and now I'm going to be this column of consciousness, light, frequencies, or whatever you want to call it, as an example, and creating transmutations of any of those adopted ideas, programs, and belief systems that we've taken on. So what you're doing is basically rewriting all of the stuff that we've adopted and carried out for 10,000 years and amplified in the last few hundred years, and really amplified, especially leading up to this point in time right now. So what we're doing is, this opportunity is for us to really flourish with our capacities, to really awaken the dormant, sometimes people call it the giant, the sourceness within yourself. It is awakening the sourceness of yourself. And that awakening of that sourceness in itself sees the beauty of all creation, and also goes into the driver's seat of redesigning it to match the perfect alignment of the state of consciousness that we have chosen to bring forth as this reality, as this co-creation, this playground we call Earth in these particular physicalities. So it's really awakening that part. It's the first part of the awakening may stimulate the idea of seeing light and dark, good and bad, and all of that stuff. But that's just the first stage where your eyes get clear, but you don't have still the access which we are, many of us are doing so, having that access of going into that source, that 0 point, that neutrality. And that's the process we're doing. In doing that, you no longer judge anything. You now go into an active state of redesigning according to what you have come here to offer. All of us have a very specific role. All of us, yes, we've come here to play. We've come here to experience. We've come here to become enlightened. That's the first phase. The second phase is we've come here to not only experience all of this stuff, is to integrate what is the game, to get the mechanics behind it, the understanding of how it worked and how you can get entangled, how deep you can go, how much separation you can experience, how much unconsciousness you can experience, so that you can get the very depth of that experience. And then the next part is activating within yourself that creator essence, and now transmuting all of that you've experienced. Now that you have hands-on experience, you're much more capable and very much more clear on how to take the action and how to modify. So the first part of the modification is within ourselves. And this is why it's instrumental for us to really pay attention what drives us, what is our operating system, what is still navigating and making our choices and is assisting us to create. Is it ego? Is it our subconscious programs? Or is it the sway of all the information, all the older constructs, the lineages, and all of the other organizations and connections that we've made? Because true self-empowerment is true self-recognition, accessing that 0 point neutrality, sourceness that you are, doesn't depend on any of that. It looks at all of it and it has an understanding of all of it, and may use bits and pieces for its purpose of whatever it requires, but it does not use any of it as navigation. So this is why it's so important to be in that state, because now you're also living in the moment where you're accessing the highest form of essence that you are, and you are able to basically use your highest levels of consciousness to create. First of all, to experience the current moment, and then to create the next moment. And each moment will be created. Then timelines don't matter, because there's only the one timeline. All these other levels of timelines that were created, all these projections, all of these dooms and glooms and whatever else, and possibilities and so forth, they were just little tidbits here, given little examples as probabilities, possibilities, simulations and things of that nature. But we've chosen not to use any of that as the foundation. It's really building everything brand new. So whatever timeline has been streamed, whatever timeline anybody has talked about, anything that you've received from any of those inputs from what the future is going to look like or anything of that nature, those were all projected simulations and so forth, and probabilities that were created, and aspects of yourself that have participated in that to sample it, to experience that. However, we're not going to be, any of them are not going to be your true guidance system and saying this is where we're heading. Because there is no place we're heading in the sense of saying this is what's going to look like, this is how it's going to feel, this is how it's going to be experienced. No, what we're doing is we're activating the highest aspect of ourselves and creating everything brand new, with all the beautiful alignments that not only within ourselves, but the alignments of all that is being streamed throughout our whole planet, our whole solar system, our galaxy and universe, which is always constantly streaming with us the highest level of not only consciousness, but awareness and examples of ways to create. It doesn't matter how many planets are out there. It doesn't matter how many different physical forms are out there. It doesn't matter whatever experiences I've had. All of them provide little tidbits, but none of them are to be replicated. You just take bits and pieces of it. It's plugged in. We are creating one unique playground, as every planet is a unique playground. Every physicality is a unique physicality. Even though it's all one, it's all us, there's nothing outside of it, but they're all unique for the very reason, because that is what source creation is about. You're not here to copy anyone. You may take on certain examples, but really you are designing your reality. You have come in with a very specific signature, with a specific combination, because even your twin soul, identical signature at the soul level. But what does it do? It embodies different physicalities. It could be on planet Earth. One can be on planet Earth. One could be on another planet. One can be at a different stage of its experience. Another on a different. The other one is at this stage of the experience, whatever that may be. However, or one may choose not to be in non-form. However, each combination is different, because even if it was on planet Earth, the two twin souls, they take on different bodies with different access to innate consciousness of the body, different lineage and genetic encodements and so forth. It takes on a different human entity, even though it's part of the collective human entity. And then the souls. So the only things that is exactly the same is the signature, the frequency that those two souls operate. But their experiences are totally different, because each one has had different journeys, has taken on different incarnations, have spent different amount of time on different planets or different experiences. Some have moved a little faster than the other and so forth. And that happens all the time, especially when the two end up meeting, especially the ones that have agreed to be on planet at the same time and be in a way where they actually meet. And of course, the age and the sex and so forth is not specific. So you look at it, no matter what, you cannot replicate any experience of any particular individual. It's designed specifically for that. You cannot have two identicals, because in fact, even like I said, the signatures may be the same. It still embodies different physicalities, different energies, different experiences, different human entities, and so forth. That makes the combination. Then the exposure of each one in that combination also varies. They're going to have possibly different parents. They're going to have opportunities to experience different aspects of it, or different physicalities in the sense of gender-wise or anything of that nature. So the variance is always there. You're not going to find any particular matching and saying, okay, we're here. So my point to all of this, you're not here to replicate or duplicate or copy anybody. You came here to be the genuine you that you are. That powerful being that you came here to be. You didn't come here to be anybody else. You know, a lot of times we look at what somebody else has done and say, well, I want their life. Their life is their life. Your life is your life. You may interact with each other. You're all part of this beautiful dance together, but they're doing their part and your part. So a lot of times what happens is we're learning from other masters and experiencers or whatever it is, or specialists and whatever else, of whatever they take on. Yes, that will give us the opportunity to learn from their crafts, learn from their choices and so forth, but it's up to you to really not to replicate what they've done, is to learn from what they've done and then create your own. Create your own experience, because that's what makes it unique. That's what makes it so powerful, and that's how we advance in a very powerful way. So I just wanted to make all of that stuff clear along the way, because right now, it's about really that empowerment of yourself and really stepping into the highest aspect of you in form to redesign and recreate. So a lot of times we're hearing so much right now about potential agendas that are rolling out, different things that may be mandated, certain restrictions of saying, well, you know, we're going to be in a martial laws, or in a situation where, you know, we're not going to have free choice. We're not going to have free will, where we don't, you know, we can't do what we really want. That is under this particular operating system that we choose to give power to. But the moment you don't, it won't. If you don't, it won't. Now, we are all powerful transmitters. We're linked, okay? So if we're looking at it, I'm not an artist here, so this is you, or me, and everybody else. We're transmitting through this powerful field of what we call the field of reality of planet Earth, okay? This will be impactful for everyone that comes even near you or connects with you, but it will reach throughout the whole planet. So the moment you start to make changes in the way you see things and your energy changes, it is being transmitted and affecting the world completely in one way or another. Now, will you have automatic results in the sense everybody changes? The streaming is effective. The streaming triggers everybody to some degree, and then it's up to each individual to activate it. But the thing is, there are many, many, many of us out there that are shifting every aspect of your lives to give you the opportunity to really, really now step into a new reality creation. Nothing representing what the old. We have to understand, too, while we're going through this, every system, every governmental, medical, educational, financial, law, military, and all the other different levels of governance, even the shadow governments and everything else, were all created under a inverted matrix, inverted 3D, 2D way of life, which the main power was given through what we call a Lucifer operating system by certain hybrids. Regardless, we don't even have to go there. And then the ego that has participated with all of that. So the thing is, all of this stuff is going to have to change because we are emanating either an organic 3D and organic 5D while the planet is still beaming organic 5D through us. And what this 5D is, fifth dimensional consciousness, it's going to need to restructure every part of it. The whole idea of slavery, haves and have-nots, and limitations and restrictions and massive polarity, massive separation, massive judgment of one another and potential wars and all of that stuff, and all of these rules and laws and control structures and a different hierarchy of authorities and all of that. None of that applies with where we are emanating from, what we're going into. So don't expect that any of it's going to stay rock solid in any way. It's going to break down bit by bit because we're bringing in new. And what we're bringing in doesn't have the same levels of restriction, does not provide all of those aspects of control and so forth that we engaged in, gave power to, and utilized as part of our experience. So all of that is changing. So when somebody asks me, how do we change this? We start changing within ourselves. We start accessing that part of us. And we start to already to create. So if certain action is required, which will be required at certain points, to voice out what you have as a choice maker, because you are free to make your own choices. We are creating an illusion and being supported in the illusion that we are not free, that we are not creators, that we are slaves, or whatever you want to call it, whatever. Those are illusional projection that we bought in and gave power to for a period of time. Many of us are breaking out of that. And when I say breaking out of it, we're no longer in that phase of the spell or whatever it is. We get so what do you call it? So wrapped up into it so that we make it so real. So this is the thing that we're doing right now. We're shifting all of that part of it. So the work that we're doing together with this Advancing Consciousness series is to really activate your own knowing and creating a radical shift within ourselves. And this is why we are doing what we're doing. All of us in different forms all over the world. It doesn't mean that you're just because you're here. This is because you were called here, because you felt drawn to be part of whatever is being offered to stimulate what you already know. It's really activating. This is not just information. This is activating your own knowing, activating your own sourceness, activating what you've always knew was there and you haven't been activated. And then energetically, as we're connecting to all of this and how everything is being transmitted energetically right now, we're giving it so much more oomph to make it come into place. Okay, So I have a whole bunch of questions here that I'm going to be addressing. So since I have Kimberly's not here to read them, I'm going to have to read them and then I will answer them. So that was the base, and that was part of what I've talked about right now from the start till now, was to kind of, that was one of the inquiries that needed some clarification. Actually, that was a combination of several inquiries and that I've combined together, and then I've shared, because a lot of people had the question is, how do we change things? How do we move forward? What action do we need to take? Are we going to go down this path or that path? What's my effort going to, how is my effort going to impact, and all of that. So I combined all of that, and this is why I shared the first part of it. So that is a combination of questions and inquiries, about 5 that were combined together at that point with that one answer, because all of them were kind of around the same thing. Okay. So one of the first questions that we have here is, I think that dementia and Alzheimer are caused by the inverted matrix agenda with toxins such as fluoride in the water. So I think these problems will disappear eventually. And as we move forward, I guess that's what they meant. And what does Alzheimer's have? What purpose does it have? Okay. All right. So when it comes to that, we have to understand we are under environmental challenging scenarios. Okay. So yes, we do have fluoride. Yes, we do have a tremendous amount of heavy metals that are coming from the sky, from the chemtrails. We're being exposed to all types of metals through even the injections that we get is called vaccines, or different inoculations, and what's in the food, what's in. So we're getting a lot of different inputs that are disrupting the chemistry, the operating system of the body, calcifying the pineal gland, creating poor management of thoughts and memory and so forth in the mind. Okay, so we are exposed to that, and everybody's exposed to it. Okay, to some degree or another. Now, some of us, are in places where your exposure is less, and others, especially if you're in cities and so forth, all the emissions and everything else, we're breathing it in. It's in our water, it's in our air, it's in our environment, everything that we touch and so forth. Yes, we're having all of that stuff going in. So it has a tendency to create the perfect pattern to be activated. Like I said, perfect pattern to be activated. Now, if we choose to have that particular experience, then we will activate it. Now, that can be a personal choice and can be a group choice. Meaning, if a particular individual wants to have that particular experience, they're going to have that experience, but they're going to have that experience with the family dynamics that has agreed at some point to go down that path. Because that experience may be just an isolated experience within that family dynamics, but it's also facilitating others to create certain scenarios, certain key instrumental activations and whatever else. And when I say activation, pushing buttons, whatever, feeling all tied into it, and create that particular experience. So it's agreed upon that they will go through that. Now, is it a sacrifice? Now, really, it's a choice that it wants to have that experience. But that's the first part. The second part with all of that, it also plays a role very powerfully for most individuals, that they are looking at their life and not feeling comfortable with their life. They are either judging themselves or seeing that they may have messed up, or that the fact that there's nothing worthwhile anymore that's of interest, the passion's gone, or feeling that they have so much regret, so much feeling bad about their past, that in a way that keeps streaming in the conscious mind and creating it. So they activate that, so to dull it, to be able to kind of not have that incessant thought forms and fears and whatever else to come through. So they start to shut down their computing power. Now, the computing power, again, is only the facet of saying, well, I'm going to turn off the power to it or reduce the power to it. But really, we want to go say, well, how about keeping the power on full out, but look at the core of it. Look at why we're feeling the way we're feeling. Why are we given up on life? Or why are we judging ourselves and so forth? That usually relates back to stories, programs, belief systems, and so forth, and perceptions and ways of life, and the stories around regret and whatever else that's still active that we seem to feel that we cannot handle. So those are the two kind of stages. Yes, the environment and everything else that we're exposed to creates the environment to be able to activate it, but it's up to us to activate it. So either we activate it because we don't want to look at our life at that point in time, and of course it also facilitates other members within our family dynamics or other people that are involved. And then there's the other part of it where the agreement is made, okay, by me doing this, it will facilitate others. So there's several meanings around that. Now, the key here is to also understand, is it reversible? Yes, it is. Yes, there are treatments for the chemistry part of it, but really it only affects and is only beneficial if we're okay to start looking at our life and be okay with our scenarios and situation and create changes within ourselves. Now, of course, as these higher frequencies are coming in, and have been coming in for a while, as our consciousness starts to raise, as we start to stimulate that passion, that creation, that imagination, all of that stuff come into play, it does have a tendency to turn off all of the things that have been activated. So cleaning up our physicality will be supportive, but is not the total answer. That will already create the environment of cleaning it up and allowing some of the operating system is. But the cleaning up is really the program stories and belief systems and so forth that we have about our life and any reflection of the past. This is why it's so instrumental to let go of the past, specifically the labels and definitions, and be able to live in the moment, because in the moment everything is absolutely in your most powerful state, and it is always perfect anyways. Not that the past wasn't perfect. Each moment of those movements along were always perfect anyways. So with all of this coming in and the consciousness and so forth, that will also reverse, and then a lot of the support mechanisms and new technologies and so forth that already exist and already are available in some cases, not maybe from the mainstream medical system, but in different streams of support that come in regards to when we're talking about holistic and other things that will help clear out the body and whatever else and remove some of those components that do cause those issues. However, really it's the consciousness that shifts. There are some individuals that want to use that as an exit out, but on its exit out, we'd want to have an opportunity just basically for them to experience it, but really to play an instrumental role for all the whole family dynamics. Because when you look at it, you can kind of see that there's the patterns of what they saw their life as a certain way. Now, some people use it as a way to kind of really shift the direction of their life because of one reason or another. But, there's many, many, many facets to it. The key is to be absolutely get to the point of clearing out all of these regrets and programs and belief systems of what was, what wasn't, and what should be, shouldn't be, all of that stuff. Just clear all of that stuff out. Go into that source essence of yourself. Take certain protocols that will facilitate as complementary, and a lot of the stuff it can be reversed. But the thing is, right now, all of that stuff will come in and support us. So we're exactly where we need to be. Is it a product of our environment? In many ways it is, but it is also really a product of how we've taken on our journey of our life, and how we see our life is the main component. Because a lot of people are running around super toxic, having tremendous amount of exposure of all heavy metals and all of these fluorides and so forth, and have super powerful computer minds at this point in time. Because you look at it, some really brilliant people out there, and they're exposed to the same environment, because for them they have a passion, and they are not choosing to look at life one way or another. They see that life is a motion, and this is the thing. We have to look at life as a movement all the time. You're always expanding. When we buy into the idea that I've reached a plateau, that I'm getting old, or this is this, or this is that, or I failed, I can't move forward, then we stop moving, and then we start reversing in a sense. So this is what kind of those dementia and Alzheimer actually replicates, is a reversal of sort. But the thing is, most of the people that have a beautiful, powerful expression of experiencing life and are really choosing to really be participant of something grander and much more powerful than what they've been experiencing, normally do not have it. And unless they're, dragging regret, but a lot don't even put focus on that. Okay. All right. So I think I covered enough of that. Okay, so then I have another question here. I understand that we are all one. However, why is it we still should shield and protect our energy fields? Okay, that's a touchy one. Do you need to shield yourself? No. However, if you believe you need to shield yourself, if you feel that something has power over you, if you feel that in some way you are vulnerable, that in some way you have a fear that whatever's around you can hurt you, affect you, then you've opened up the codes for anything. So for example, if you're a so-called light worker, but you're afraid of the dark workers, or whatever you want to call them, then what happens is you're now creating not only a separation, you're stepping away from that power state that you are, that 0 point neutrality part, and now you're creating a polarity, and the polarity, like magnets, like to attract to each other. So you're going to have various parts because you're afraid of the dark, you're judging the dark, you're pushing the dark, and that tends to come more to you. I'm just giving you as one example. So if we also have certain frequencies within ourselves that are very low frequencies and we go into those states, then we kind of align with those frequencies, and those frequencies will have the capacities to amplify whatever you may have as a fear component or have this disposition to be able to experience within yourself. So you're right, we are all one. Absolutely. No doubt about it. Do you need to protect yourself? No. You never do. However, if you're going to be playing in a way where you are lowering your state, then you say, okay, well, I'm going to shield myself with higher frequency. But how powerful are those shields if your frequency is lower? Then the shield is always being affected. But if you allow yourself, so this is why I've suggested and said many times here, what you do is if you feel that you're going to enter an environment where you're going to be exposed to different energies, it's best to say, I call in my soul in body fully. Activate home frequency, meaning activating the highest frequency that soul can emit. Then you activate within yourself the highest level of source essence that your body can contain. What happens is your vibration goes up. And now you're not even concerned about positive, negative thoughts. You're thoughtless. You're in where you're not going either way. You're in that empowered state. So you're now connecting to that higher level of awareness. Anything of negative negative energies will not even try to come close because you're like this beam of light that would diminish their capacities to play. Same thing with, negative entities or negative energies from somebody else. If you're just beaming light because you're in that powerful present moment, neutral state, source essence that you are, because we are all source essence, but we do dim it down at times to experience certain things, and we get caught up in the stories, programs, and belief systems that lowered it, then no matter what's in the room, that room starts to get clear, the negative and the dark, or whatever you want to call it, those polarizations start to move. And then if you're truly in neutral, it doesn't matter what is launched at you, whatever is being presented at you, you're not only not even affected, you don't even sense it because it cannot even have any effect on you whatsoever. So the thing is, the moment we go into that I need to protect myself, you're already in victim mode. you're already in a disempowered state. So you want to be in the empowered state, because in an empowered state, you know you're a co-creator. In an empowered state, you are co-creating, but you're co-creating in a way where you're not going to allow any polarized experience that doesn't absolutely serve you to be part of your experience. That means that doesn't matter what is coming your way, it doesn't engage, because you're not giving it permission. You're not agreeing for it to be part of your experience. And that's the thing. So I want to say that very instrumental, because a lot of times we get caught up in, we need to protect ourselves, right? Sometimes you say, okay, I'm going to have crystals, I'm going to have certain things that will raise the vibration. That's as if you're dealing with a lower vibration state of yourself, and then you say, okay, I can't hold that energy because I'm going through this emotional stuff, or I'm going through these older programs. Then you may create an environment where, certain things will hold the energy for you while you process what you need to process. But the thing is, the key is you're processing. When you have already processed and you're already clear from it and you're at that higher state, there's no crystal that's going to supersede what you are. So in fact, you're going to pick up the crystal, and what are you going to do? You're going to charge that crystal, because your energy is going to charge it, because that's what crystals do. They charge by the energies that are surrounded by them. Now, they have a tendency to hold a certain higher vibration, and because they're inert from nature, so they tend to emanate what you call Gaia's frequency to a certain degree, depending on how it's been handled and whatever else. So that becomes part of the understanding of that, holding that energy that crystal has, but you're charging it. You're charging it. And a lot of times that's why people put crystals and other things in the sun, because it allows the codes that are coming in, the spectrum of light that's coming in from the sun, to charge it. So you can create that environment when you're still working on your stuff. But what it meant, you have to understand, you are the ultimate crystal. Your crystal state is much more powerful than any other crystal state, because you're a pure combination. You're not just Gaia itself, you're basically source essence at a higher level. I'm not saying Gaia is not, because it is part of that. All of it, everything is, no matter how we look at it, even including the dark, but like people like to call it. But the thing is, you're bringing in the highest state. So your soul, all the connections from all the different dimensions are charging your crystal. And this is what we're doing too. We're going from carbon to silicate to crystalline. And those crystals get charged within ourselves. But the crystal is not to protect you. The crystal is to hold that energy as you create from that level. So hopefully that covers that part about the protection thing. So if you're finding that you need to be protected, then you're playing in the victim role, you're playing in the lower state, and you're emphasizing polarity. So you don't want to be in that. But however, if you see, okay, you're dealing with certain energies, you say, okay, I can now create an environment. I can call it an environment. But I would say first and foremost is bring you to that level, because that supersedes anything else. So it's really bring the soul back in, call the soul fully embodiment, activate home frequency of the soul, which brings multidimensional, higher dimensional state of frequency, activating the highest level of source essence within yourself, and you're now supercharged. And the thing is, if fear comes along, you look at the fear and you just say, not interested, we're not playing there, from that state. Because then at that state, you're not afraid of it. It's like, oh my God, I gotta look at my fear, I gotta look at that. That doesn't come into your play. Because if it's coming in that play, you're still in separation, you're still in polarity, you're still operating with that. So that's why you repeat the process. So then you can look at it from a whole different perspective. You're now at a supercharged way of looking at it. Okay. It bounces around a little bit. Okay. At some point, I'd be interested in pets and their souls. If they have one, how do they play a part in all of this? Okay. So I know I'm going to shake some people. Do cats, dogs, any pet at this point, horses, you name it, do they have an individualized signature soul? No. However, they are connected to an oversoul of that particular species that has a filament of projection accordingly that is supporting them for their experience and for what role they have to play. So they are getting it from a cluster. So if you're talking about one pet, here's the cluster, what we can call the oversoul of a horse, for example, dog, cat, any pet, really. This is accumulation of all experiences of all of these pets on all different aspects of projection throughout the whole planet. So they're all connected, billions of them, whatever their amounts there are. And they're communicating back and forth, receiving constantly higher points. So when somebody says, well, you know, they seem to have almost an individualized consciousness. Well, they each have, say this is one particular pet, it each has a particular stream that it's communicating to and also getting feedback from. Okay, so whatever one of your pets experiences, it goes back to this, it what do you call it? Processes it, whatever, I can't find the right word right now. Reviews it completely and then streams it a new experience. But that's where it stops. Pets have a tendency to be wired in such a way that they will connect with your soul. So if they're in your life stream, they will connect with your soul. So their soul, which is that stream, becomes part of yours. So they will work with you to teach you, assist you, support you in one way or another. Either it's a mirror, meaning a reflection of whatever that may be, or it's giving you an example, or it's just holding a certain energy that supports you along the way. So what happens is a lot of times we find that we have such a powerful connection with our pet because we are communicating back and forth and sharing. But not only that, they're playing particular roles to facilitate and assist you. Now, if there's certain characteristics that you do not have fully activated or are, not part of your experience, then they will replicate that part of it. A lot of times you'll see them, how they react and respond and how they live their life, their loyalty, whatever they may be, is usually showing you a way to connect with that and utilize it as part of your experience. Now, a lot of times what happens is we have this thing called the ego that has so much freaking doubt about everything. What happens a lot of times is that we get so caught up in our game of life through what the ego says that we do not, because it's not only communicating to the soul, it's also communicating to your mind, specifically the right brain. Right brain. So they're actually taking your experience, observing it from their perspective, from the whole collective part, streaming it back to you and into your mind, and all of a sudden they're actually assisting you to see things that you would not normally see. So a lot of times animals end up being a facilitator and also to see what we can't see. So some animals, when we're working, especially energy workers and whatever else, they can see energies and they will relate it and sometimes communicate it in a different way for us so that we can actually, because we don't have that part open. Or the fact that they will share certain levels of consciousness. Now, again, if you have multiple pets, they're going to work together anyways. Say you have 3. They're all interacting, but they're all communicating with you. So, if you're drawn to a pet, you're drawn to the pet because they have an offering for you that is made available. So they play a role of this. Now, remember, animals, the way they work, and we're talking not only just, animals, the oceanic kingdom, all the different kingdoms, birds, you name it. They're all also mimicking and replicating some of our older programs of the inverted matrix, inverted 3D, 2D. Because animals in their natural state, because they're outside of their natural state too, because of the communication back and forth, they will reflect what we need. However, it doesn't mean that's their natural operating system, because the whole thing of food chain and the roles that they play, which, a lot of times, you could see certain animals get really angry or, are vicious and stuff like that. That's a reflection to show that, we're still projecting that. And maybe not always so much inside yourself, because you may be just internalizing some of the part, but it's a reflection of the thing. But you really, you have to understand, you're saying, well, do we have a pet that is angry or whatever it is? Well, it can download that from the whole stream, but realistically, the only reason it's being reflected is because somehow it's serving you, or else it wouldn't. Or you wouldn't be drawn to the one that's going to play that particular role. And this is the thing. This is the understanding of that. So do they play a role in all of this? Yes, they are part of the shifting too. And as we continue to shift, and we're all co-creating, and they're part of the co-creation, and everything on the planet is part of the co-creation, you'll see that all of this will take a whole different course in the way that we experience our connection with the animal kingdom. Now, and you can understand that some of the animal kingdom has also taken on the role where it allows humanity to do things that are less than humane, I guess you want to call it, but less than their highest order, in sense where, we may torture them, or we abuse them, or we may kill them for sport or for food or anything of that nature. Because really our true operating system, we're not here to eat animals, okay? We're not designed for it. It was something that was adopted when the inverted matrix got plugged in. The body had to adjust accordingly and whatever else. But is it really that? It's not. So this whole thing, so there's animals that said, okay, I'm going to play that particular role or whatever it is, so that you can keep putting this in the field and into the collective reality, until you finally get it and say, hey, we're your friends, we're part of you, we're an extension of you, we love you, we want to be part of you in your journey forward, we want to also create the environment of our own sharing and so forth. And once we start getting into that realization, then you'll see that all of that abuse stuff disappears, or the fact that we even use them as a part of a food chain will all change accordingly. Okay, and then their operating system upgrades, because the oversoul of the horse, dogs, cats, reptiles, you name it, any particular one that comes in contact with you. That's why a lot of times animals, when they become in your life, they start to connect with you much more, and you start to replicate. And we're also drawn to certain animals that are going to be much more service to us, because of the fact that they will reflect something that we want to learn from it, or have them to kind of show as an example or something of that nature. All right, I think we've covered that one. Can all souls contracts be voided? Okay, so when we're talking about soul contracts, souls do make agreements to come in and play particular roles. Okay. It also makes agreement to activate certain part. It makes agreements for other souls to meet other souls. Okay, so there's several levels. We reflect an oversoul, and we do make agreements. So when we're talking about soul mates, these are souls that you may have had other lives with, or have made a connection with prior to this life, that you have agreed that at some point you will come into each other's lives and play a specific role. Now, the roles are going to be mutual. So one will assist in one way, the other one will assist the other way. And it will play that role. Sometimes the agreement is, okay, you've helped me in other lives, or the fact that I really want to have this experience, but you can use some assistance in that area, I'll play the role. And it will be a little bit more one-sided than the other. It's still equal, because even them to have the experience, they're gaining from it, and for you to get whatever that experience is to help you shift or awaken, to make a shift in yourself and to reach a different reality. So there's soul agreements in that regards. There are also soul agreements in the sense of what we call soul families and so forth. But the soul makes an agreement to come in and say, okay, I'm going to have all these experiences, I'm going to play this particular role, and I'm also going to step into different stages as I'm going through. Okay? So do we have an opportunity to say, okay, I can cancel all my contracts? Well, the question is, who wants to cancel the contract? Is it the ego mind? Is it from an old belief system, or is it something that from a soul perspective? Because the soul has full capacities to say, okay, things have changed. The scenario of the experience is different. What looked like was necessary before is no longer necessary, or that we've already accomplished as much as we want to accomplish because the rest of it doesn't matter because it doesn't align anymore because things have changed, not only collectively, but it's also changed in our particular experience and the particular alignments that have gone in. So it will renegotiate or basically cancel any agreement and make a new agreement, or just keep it on flow. And when I say keep it on flow, meaning that it would just go moment by moment, say, okay, I'll take on this task or that task, or I let go of this task, or whatever it is. So some of us have made an agreement to play a particular role with certain individuals or within the family dynamics, but then things are advancing a certain way. The importance shifts from just helping focusing on the family dynamics to a bigger scale where you're affecting a larger number of people. Then guess what? Your role shifts so that agreement that you've made no longer becomes applicable, so that is terminated. So what it does, it voids all the agreements with those particular individuals. I'll give you an example. So you have parents and you have siblings, for example, that you've made agreements, and extended family, that you've made agreements with different individuals to come in and play that particular role. Now, at some point, they have chosen to move a lot slower, and you've been nudged because of the energies and whatever your next part of the task is. Then what happens? You're saying, okay, for me to continue that agreement, the old agreement, it's going to slow down what is much more important now because the importance has shifted. So I'm going to shift. So those agreements end up. So even if they say, hey, wait a minute, from a conscious mind saying, what happens? You're abandoning your family, or that, you're supposed to help us, we're family and so forth. You're going to find yourself saying, I understand we're going to maintain a connection, but I need to do what I need to do. Is that selfishness? No, that is shifting the perspective from a smaller group, a unit, to a larger unit. And I've had that experience myself where, I played a particular role in the family dynamics and they chose to stay wherever they are. And then my role had to shift to affect masses of people that are more online with movement forward, where they're not. And that's okay. Do I still interact with them? Rarely, but yes. But then I don't have any agreements to assist them in any way to shift it. However, if there's any need for it, I will know, and then if I have to say something or act a certain way or be a certain way, then I will temporarily, but that's the thing. Also, you may have come into with agreements with a list of things that you wanted to get done in this particular lifetime, and that could be certain things you hadn't finished before, certain things you have agreed to do within the lineage, certain things that you've agreed through other extensions that have come in from past lives or whatever it is. The thing is, all of this gets evaluated on a constant basis. Specifically now, not so much before, specifically now, and saying, okay, what are any of these still very important? Is it going to advance things in a big way moving forward or not? And then it will negate or void or clear out anything that does not support. So these are some of the things that we understand. There's a lot changing right now. So the answer is, can soul contracts be voided? Yes, at any point in time, and it's already happening. The point is, who is requesting the change? Is it the ego saying, well, I don't like that, I don't want to be part of that? Or is it from a higher perspective? From a higher perspective, it's very easy to do. From the ego perspective, no, I don't want to do that anymore. That's very different than, or that, I don't like this agreement. Now, a lot of times what happens is we have a soul agreement with ourselves for our own advancement to create an environment, to change your reality, to expand it further. Guess what? If that's the case, then you're going to have certain role players that are going to come in and they're going to play specific roles to advance you, even though you may not see it that way at that time. Because you're going to see it in a way where, oh my goodness, what am I doing? I'm in this pattern of being a victim or anything of nature. Your soul saying, we need to get you out of this victim state, this operating system, this automatic default that you've adopted for a period of time. So we're going to bring those particular individuals. So those souls will come in and facilitate. Are they contracts? Not so much contracts, but they're agreements that are made temporarily to push whatever it is. So the point is, yeah, you're always free. You can move through things. You're only going to have experiences that serve you and nothing more. Okay. You said that we have full possibilities to change the reality at all times. Even though you are a co-creator, you can take charge. Can you elaborate on that? Okay, you said that we have full possibility to change the reality at all times. Absolutely. Even though you are a co-creator, you can take charge. Okay, so I guess the question comes in a sense of understanding that we're always creating personal reality, first and foremost. Your current reality, your current way of looking at life and shaping it. You are fully in that. Now, you also make agreements to co-create with others. Now, the co-creation has to be in alignment of where you're at. So that means that if you're going to play in the family dynamics, you are co-creating your involvement, your reality, your pattern, your choices, and how you interact with every facet of it. You have the freedom to shift it. That's why the increase in consciousness allows you to shift away or play a different role in any of those particular arrangements that you may have with different individuals. Now, when we're talking about, many of us get confused in the sense of saying, okay, I desire a new world. Absolutely. Fantastic. Great. But my co-creation of the whole planet is not reflecting that. True enough. However, when we start with ourself creating that new world, you start to experience it, live it, feel it, breathe it, become part of it. First part of that new world is alignment with your body, your human entity, your soul, your mind. Then you start shaping your reality, your current reality around you, making choices and playing with different things and plugging in and unplugging different experiences. That's the first part. Then that starts to extend further within family dynamics, work environments, or whatever you are. So your state starts to change the interactions and the co-creations around it. So the environment changes. Now, sometimes you're going to be in an environment that refuses to change. So that means that co-creation of that unit still wants to play a certain role. You will know that you're not there to change that, even though that you are a conduit to some degree and have participated in a way to support it in one way or another. But you will have a tendency to feel, okay, I am not here of service here, and I do not relate with that any longer, with no judgment, no expectations, no comparison. You're going to say, okay, I'm going to step out of that cluster reality, because it's just what it is, a cluster reality. I'm stepping out of that cluster reality, and I'm going to now align with a new cluster or start creating my own environment and let others come and participate along the way. So you're creating your world and having other participants coming up. Now, at the same time, as you're doing that, you're still, like I said here, you're transmitting forward, and your co-creation is called creating advanced pattern disrupts, I guess you can call it. Advanced pattern disrupts. So that gives the opportunity to create changes in so many levels along the way on a collective scale. So as you're doing that and others lining up like-minded and are of the same frequencies and understanding of that, it starts to cause a very powerful ripple effect. This is what being online and connecting with people all over the world it's hugely effective or beneficial, because each one of us are a conduit. As we light up, we're lighting up all over the world, creating this beautiful expansion. So we co-create. So to bring it back down, we co-create as we choose to co-create, as we choose to involve. Now, sometimes we get involved in the co-creation because of a program and story, but we, as an observer, you will notice, why am I choosing to co-create this old world, this old reality, this old pattern? What do I believe? What do I feel about myself? Or what story, program, belief systems, or labels, or definitions am I holding on to? Because if you feel yourself stuck, then you got a few things to look at, so that you want to clear that part of it out. So hopefully that's enough elaboration around the fact that, yeah, you have the freedom to move in any cluster or create your own. You are the only way you can experience everything the same is because you're part of it. So a lot of you that have already seen your life shift, because people will come and go. And the reason people come and go is because your co-creation, or what you're creating, doesn't match with other people's creation. So those people will step away because they still want to stay within their creation. And then others that will match your will come. So this is the thing, is that there's always a reorganization going on, coming, going, that movement. And that's what it's about. It's movement. We're coming together right now with like-minded people. Now everybody's at different stages and so forth, but you're basically here only because it serves you in one way or another. Okay. All right. Next one. Timelines. When is a new timeline created? Can I change timelines? Is changing timelines the same as changing my reality? Well, in a way, yes. So we have no more fixed timelines. That was agreed upon. It's gone. We have a timeline that we are building moment by moment. No longer, and I know I've talked about it before, so I'm not going to go too elaborate. I've talked about it before. We used to have multiple timelines. So the multiple timelines were our own personal timelines and the collective timelines. But then there's several collective timelines. For example, there's timelines. I'm just going to use the same. I'm not going to keep drawing it over. So there's your personal timelines. These are your personal paths that you used to have, with plugged in certain scenarios and situations and trigger points and whatever else along the way. So depending on what timeline, each timeline had a different vibration, different state of frequency. So let's call it frequency. And so each one had a different frequency. Each one was something that you would tap into, and then certain alignments would come about. So these could be certain individuals coming in, certain experiences coming in, or whatever it is. Okay? So that's part. So there's your personal timeline. Then there was the timeline that you merged with your family dynamics or other clusters that you go in there. So that means that if I'm going to be in my family dynamics, then I have multiple timelines that I play within them, with them. So it's co-created. So we have that timeline. And then of course, there's other levels of timeline. And then there was the collective timeline, which we call planetary timeline. So we had multiple timelines. Some of these timelines were just disastrous, end of the world. Some of them were like nirvana, whatever it may have been. Usually it wasn't that far of a spectrum, so it was all pretty close. And we had certain events that could have occurred at different points in time, whatever it is. So that was the timelines. So whenever you were at different states, the collective was at a different state, we would shift timelines. So if the energies of the collective would shift, then this timeline may have had World War III, or this timeline would have had massive devastation, However, because the frequency, the consciousness, and the co-creation changed, so now we shifted to a different timeline that had less intensities. So if you raise it enough, then what we're doing, we're replicating a 5D or 3D organic way of life. Then, of course, you didn't need all of those devastations. None of that stuff would get plugged in any way, shape, or form. So that's how it worked. Now, what we have is our own timeline, one timeline. Nothing's plugged in. So you're here, for example, and guess what? You're creating each and every moment. So this is yours. This is the families. This is the bigger clusters. This is the planetary. All one line. Everyone has one timeline. Like I was saying earlier, it doesn't matter what's been forecasted. You can't forecast anything. You can forecast, or basically look in the future, as a probability based on the frequency that you're in at that point in time. As long as nothing changes, yes, you have the potentiality to plug in all of that. So that's why it's so instrumental to live in the moment and let go of the past, because you don't want to bring any of the past stuff into the moment, or else you're just going to create and repetitive creation of those particular sequences of experiences. So we have our own, we have different levels of clusters, because we even have timelines that are, gender-based and whatever else. Okay, those are a little less, a little more subtle, but at the same time, those are there. But so let's look at the two, the most key instrumental. There's your timeline and the world's timeline. So let's make that the world. The world's timeline. So you have the different timelines. So we have one timeline, which we plug in and unplug. And this is the beauty of it. This was a less chance of changing things because it was more rigid, and we would just have to shift so that our creation would be one or the other. This one being fully open, we're just plugging in what we need, when we need it, how we need it, and unplug. So we put in, take out, put in, take out, where it's not as rigid as it was here, where it's all in, and then we kind of have to maneuver to find a higher timeline, because at that point in time, or else we would have those particular scenarios. Now, were all these timelines running at the same time? Absolutely. So all of these were examples. But where was our focus? Which of the timelines did we see? What the planetary timeline were we seeing would be that. But now we only have the one timeline. So the one timeline is flexible. And we plug in, plug out, everything exists in this moment. So this is why it's super, super instrumental, super important. The key to all of this is to create shifts in yourself so that you're not shifting timelines, you're upgrading the construct of timelines, construct of your one timeline. That way you are not going to hang on to anything, because you plug in this particular experience personally, you utilize it, and it's gone. You don't have to move out of it or anything. You unplug it. You bring someone into it. You have that interaction, that exchange, that dance together, and then done. I bring in this particular experience, done. It's no longer we get adhered, attached to it, or that we need substantial push to get out of it or into it or anything of that nature. So you're able to move a lot easier. And the reason this was all done so that we have much more movement. Plus, all these timelines were plugged in when the inverted matrix was very active, the inverted 3D, 2D, and we were offline with our galaxy. We were isolated. What do they call it? There's a word for it. I can't think of it right now. But we were offline. That meant that we weren't receiving as much input, quarantined or whatever you want to call it, so that we weren't receiving. So the reflection of that experience was very much so based on what the inverted matrix, inverted 3D, 2D was reflecting. Once all of these changes got in and all of that got deactivated and we were brought back online, now we're getting so much more input from source, essence, and a much open platform timeline, okay, level of consciousness and different inputs, that the timelines now have to be super, super flexible, and that's what it is. So we can plug in and unplug everything very, very easily. So if somebody says, like I've said, we've put in sequences saying, okay, we're going down this timeline. We put a cutoff here in 2023. See? Okay, so in 2023, we want to wrap up all the inverted matrix stuff that we still have as an operating system on the back end. On a personal level, we want to remove the inverted 3D and 2D. We want to purge all the construct stories and so forth that supported it, all the different modalities that support it. So we put a cutoff. That can happen sooner. I highly doubt it's going to extend, but there's a possibility to that. But in a sense, that's the intent. So now we're looking at, also at this point in time, we're looking at 2035. And you say, okay, at 2035, we're completing all the necessities for organic 3D and organic 5D. I'm going to merge it together. And so by 2035, that there's only fifth dimensional consciousness in fourth density playground. Then there's integration time. So the point is at 2040, the intent, and everything is being shaped to that form, is to be able to be fully integrated, everyone fully integrated into fifth dimensional consciousness, and the reality is created all based on that. So a lot of the structures and everything else, those are the intent and so forth. So those are plugged in, and whatever is going to assist us. But how we experience it, how quickly, what is entailed, how many shoves we need or nudges or anything of that nature, we're going moment by moment with that. And that's how it works. Okay. Timelines has a complexity, but it's also simple too. How do you access the field of information consciously? Now, I'm not sure if that's reflecting to how I do or how we do. Okay, so how do you access? Because I think I would have said access the field of information consciously. The more we connect with ourselves, I find that when I'm in connection mode, where I am fully aligned with myself, and that's why I give you the whole thing. So you basically, once you've done that, you just say, okay, I'm aligning mind, body, and soul, okay, and human entity, if you have one, which most people all do. So you basically say, I'm aligning body, human entity, soul, and mind to that. And then what's happening is that you get to the quiet state and you have that information, you're accessing the field information that's being shared. Now, your soul has access to that. Your human entity has access to that. And your innate consciousness of the body has access to it. At different degrees and different levels, and different each one playing a different functionality. The third eye also has access to that, which goes directly to the mind, or what we can call the brain, as the computer. It's receiving all of those information. So how do we do it? Some of us already, have had it for quite some time, where we're connecting to that field energy very clearly, and you can tap into whatever information is there that is being shared. But a lot of times the souls are very active for that. Others go through the process, and then they are able to access that part of it. It's the same thing as the other one. How do I hear stream from your soul or from our human entity? It's focused through how do you, meaning myself. But at the same time, whatever I'm reflecting is for all of us. My soul is very active, and all of our souls are. What happens is you have to kind of quieten the ego mind and be able to connect with yourself more. So usually what I do is, if I want to talk to the body, I just basically, I connect with the body. I feel my self-presence, and I say, okay, body, I am open to receive, open to communicate with you right now. Okay? Share with me whatever consciousness you would like to share. These are some of the inquiries I may have. You're not going to go in, why is this happening to me? Say, okay, we are experiencing this. What is the message? What do we need to shift? What alignments have to take place? Whatever that may be. Okay? Sometimes it will expose a certain agreement, or will play a certain role, or explain whatever it is, so that you can connect with the body. You want to connect to the human entity? Usually you just go into the solar plexus area. That's your kind of your gut feel, and you put your focus there and you activate. So you just say, okay, human entity, I'm ready to have a communication with you. And so by putting your attention there, quieten the mind, of course, get everything else out of the way, and just be able to communicate, so that your human entity will be able to share its consciousness. Now again, the human entity has a lot of resources, because the human entity itself is connected to the what you call the cluster human entity. That means all human entities, the whole cluster source essence. Now it does have certain compartments within it, where certain streaming may come to you that's more specific for you. But in fact, it has access to all of it if it's necessary. So that means it's like going to the library, and you're going to go to the section that you have interest for, that you want to get something from, rather than say, I'm going to look at the whole library. Now there's going to be certain times you're going to move from one section to another section. You have access to the whole library, but you're going to bring in exactly what you need to do. As for my soul, our soul, you're going to connect at the heart level. Same thing. You activate first of all, you call in your soul, say, soul, come on in, fully embody at this point in time, activate your home frequency, and then communicate with your soul. All parts are communicating all the time to your right brain. That is the part that receives. The right brain is receiving information from your body, it's receiving information from your human entity, and it's receiving information from your soul, and also through the third eye. The right brain is basically processing all of that. That's why they call it the intuitive brain, the creative brain, and something like that, because it has much more input. Then it streams into the left brain, which creates the reality, our way of experiencing life, and so forth. So that's kind of what we're looking at when you're reflecting or seeing all of those components come into play. So it's really a matter of just quietening and connecting with those parts. With myself, with the role that my soul has come here to play, it is constantly, like right now, the way I'm talking to you, everything I talk to you, every time I do that, is my soul stepping in and sharing information that is from a higher state of consciousness that you already have within yourself that is triggering. So it was active right from day one. It actually reduced its capacities for a while, but it also went back to full exposure. That period went down. It was only to give an opportunity for myself, for Franco aspect of it, not to have all that higher input to experience what other people experience. Maybe not 100%, but a huge way of experiencing and understanding the human condition, the human experience, what we were dealing with, and others, including how the ego can take over and whatever else. So, but the soul is communicating. So whenever I start this, the soul is communicating with you. The soul also taps into levels of consciousness that is in the field, source. Now, it only shares the highest level of source essence that we are able to utilize at this point in time. The soul is also coming from a parallel, an alternate universe, which already has planet Earth that has advanced. So there was already that. So the soul was involved in the retooling 15,000 years ago. They'd come back and check 10,000 years ago and at different stages, and now it has come back in to bring the oneness encodement. And this is why my focus is oneness, neutrality, 0 point, my so-called other aspect of myself, which is an aspect of all of us because we're all aspects of each other, that came a couple of thousand years ago, came to activate, which people call Yeshua or Jesus or whatever it is, came in to encode love. Now, We already had that in us, but it was turned off for majority because of the inverted matrix, the inverted 3D, and the operating system that was modified. So he came in a male body at that time and activated love, and had returned 32 other times after that in drop-ins to kind of tweak. Then my soul decided to come here at this time to activate, or 62 years ago, to activate the oneness. And now all the information is based on that source code of what has already been established. Now, when I say established, meaning that those levels of advancement of consciousness has been achieved, and now it's being implemented here. Is it going to be an exact replicate? No. There's no replicates of anything, but it's just a matter of bringing the consciousness and the awareness and the experience of what that looks like, and then for us to really co-create something that is advantageous. So, somebody had asked me, who's the key instrument that's bringing the code for oneness? It's my soul. That's in this particular physical body. So that is what it came here to do. And my soul knew that, shared it with me when I was younger and at different stages in my life and so forth. But, does it make me any special? Absolutely not. I had to go through all of the stuff I'm going through and experiencing what I'm experiencing now anyways, on all different realms. But at the same time, we're just bringing information to really spark that knowing within yourself. Okay. I think we covered all of that. How to put something up in the field. Is that automatically? Which things are added to the field? Okay, so when I'm talking about what people refer to the field, or I've also talked about the field a lot, is the field of sourceness. It's the field. Now, we are, say, this whiteboard is source, the field. Okay, we created a field within a field. So here is the field of the experience of being a human, planet Earth, and so forth. I'm just giving you, this is not really in any way to minimize, but within the field, because I have to show you somehow to give you an idea. So within that, we have a field. We have a field around us, and we have a field that expands throughout. There's different fields, of course, but let's look at the field that expands throughout the whole planet. So the whole planet field affects the different levels of field. So the next level of field is basically the solar system. The field after that is the galaxy. The field after that is the universe. So, and here you are with your field in the middle there somewhere. Of course, it's going to be a super minute dot in comparison to the scale. However, we're connected to the field. Whatever we experience, we either enforce the old version of the field, or we upgrade, we experience and plug in, emanate. So we're always connected to the field. Everything that you experience is going into the field. Now, once it's in the field, it's available to be utilized by other aspects of ourselves. A lot of the control structures knew that. That's why it's always been projecting fear and so forth, that everybody's emanating in the field, all of that. So it's being surrounded so that we tap into that and we reinforce it, because those lower operating systems, that I talked about in episode 18 and all 6 parts of it, reflected very much on that operating system and so forth, because the ego is a software that's within our operating system, and then we had the operating system that was very polarized or separate, very low frequency and lower states of consciousness. So because we are all connected to the field, what we experience is reinforcing in the field. And for that operating system to exist, it requires that energy within that field. So realistically, we're always connected. So whatever we're experiencing, especially transmuting, especially advancing consciousness, especially shifting away and becoming more yourself, is putting all of that in the field. If we're clearing a program and we're putting it in the field, because the field itself, when we're going into this realm of the field itself, and that's what we're doing, is it goes into the field, it becomes pure source, pure essence, and because everything is full spectrum light, which we, through consciousness, through our capabilities, create realities. There is no form. We project the form, which is just a light show, which we call a holographic projection. Looks real, feels real, tastes real, all of that stuff, but it's done that way so that that realism is brought into the experience. So when we're looking at all of this, when we're clearing, letting go, and putting things into the field, we're putting it into the source essence, and everything just returns back to pure essence, non-form, non-definition, non-labeled. It's just pure form, which we can use and create. Now that field, this whole field, the field itself is always upgrading anyways, because the different levels of field. So this field of planet Earth is affected by every one of us here. This field is all the different planets and all the different energies and different embodiments in our solar system. This is all the planets and embodiments in our galaxy, and that is in our universe, and then beyond it goes into the whole sourceness part. So each level affects the next. Okay, so when you're putting, it's automatic. So as soon as you let go of something, it's gone. So it's automatic. So that's the short answer, which I expanded quite a bit. Okay, how to experience from an already uploaded experience. Example, to play the violin as Mozart or to levitate. Okay, somebody's crafty here. How do we upload it? Well, if it's going to serve you, you have full archives, full accessibility. Now, the body has an innate consciousness, which can extend through your genetics. So if there's somebody in the genetic pool or lineage that could play the violin, then that could be utilized through the physicality. All of a sudden you know how to play it and so forth, because you could activate it. But the reason you would activate it is because somehow it becomes an instrumental tool for you to represent or express or something of that nature. I mean, you do that all the time. The other part is your human entity may have had lives that was a very crafty musician, or even that human entity could have been Mozart, for example, in a previous life. And that skill is available. So we would bring that skill and plug it in to your experience. So you can call that in too. The other thing is your soul. Now the soul may have some memories of this life, but it also may have technology capacities or understandings from different dimensional states of being, from different areas of life, in different forms, in different densities and dimensions on different planets and so forth. So it can bring all of those things in. So how do you upload it? It's really about downloading it. So you can connect. There are processes, and I won't go through the process itself. I haven't mastered it because I've never really had to, I never really put the attention to do so. And I think there are some days I'd like to download something that I could utilize in a certain way. One could be some artistic work, and the other part is, vocal part. I mean, I can speak, whatever it is, but not always to the capacity I would love to. So you can just go into a quiet state. You can tap into your body, and you can tap into what it has to offer. You can do that with your human entity, or you can tap into your soul. Just experiment with all of that, and then ask for it to download. Now, sometimes we can download even without coming through those channels. You can do it from your third eye, which you're now going to download from, because you have to understand, your human entity has memory of every single incarnation, but it also has access to the collective. So there are many that have expressed different types of experience. Collective, what do you call it, resource. collective resource of certain skill sets and so forth. So you can tap into that too. So it's really going into a quiet state. I think there were some people that do tap into their doppelgangers, I think they call them doppelgangers, yeah. Which is basically another aspect of yourself that is having a certain experience, and you can bring those skills in. There are programs that teach you how to do that in a sense, where you can download certain skills. There are people that didn't know how to draw, and then they were able to bring in certain skill sets and able to do so. If you watch The Matrix, yeah, you can download that into your operating system. It's a matter of just practicing with it, and as long as you don't get your ego going, you can't do that, or whatever it is, it's going to be a hard process. You will be able to do it, and you can download various things that you may want to utilize in this experience. Okay, so hopefully that's enough for that. Science is now showing that sound equals vibrations, affects the cells in the body. Example, can be used to disorganize cancer cells. True. Light waves are a different form of vibrations. For example, microwaves. Light vibrations also affect the body. Thoughts are energy. Are thoughts like sound waves or light waves? What is the relationship? They're all connected. All of it. Each part plays a particular role. So when we're talking light rays, light waves, source is full spectrum. And it basically carries every part of all existence, creation, and so forth in those spectrums. So it gives you carte blanche, pure potentiality. All right? Sound is the same way. Sound was used to create form. Through sound, it's a certain vibration that organizes energy, organizes and structures what we call the light frequencies to look like some form of some sort. Now, the different frequencies that are being transmitted and utilized at this point in time that we use as part of our technologies do create disruption. Different spectrums of light create disruptions or changes cellular structures and so forth in our body, but also, again, you still have full power of the choice of it. So you can be exposed. For example, if you're outside and exposing yourself as much as possible to the sun, okay, and you're allowing, and when I say as much as possible, allowing those light rays to come through without sunscreening and all that other stuff, of course you're going to have time until the body gets used to it because it goes into defense mode and shuts itself down in a sense, while, you know, using melanin to kind of create a burning sensation. But you allow your body to expose more and more of it. It's taking in light codes. Those are frequencies. Light codes, spectrums of light of frequencies, which actually reorganizes the cells, reorganizes the communication, reorganizes a lot of the structures, and actually creates a conversion within your body from the crystal, from the carbon to the silicate to the crystal. Okay, our connection to the planet emanating vibrations and so forth. So yes, do thought forms create vibration? A small amount, yes. What you think about is only a reflection of how you feel and what the story behind that feeling is. So emotions are much more powerful because you're now instructing the body to engage in those vibrations, in those states. So if you have a lot of negative thoughts, it usually comes along at that point in time with what you can call negative emotions or very low vibration emotions like anger, fear, judgment, you know, rage, whatever are those super polarized parts of it. Fear, victimizing, being a victim, and so forth, those are all low vibration, and you're going to feel emotions of that, and that reflects those lower spectrums of frequency within yourself. So you can say, well, I'm going to change my thoughts. That helps a little bit. Really, what you need to look at is what makes you have those lower thoughts. What is your story? What's your belief? What's your focus? What is part of what the story that's coming up that is utilized to have those particular emotions? That's why first thing you want to do is experience the emotion. Allow the emotions to be there. follow it through until it subsides. Then you want to look at what creates the emotion, because an emotion requires a story, program, belief system, or label, definitions of some sort to activate it. Once you've done that, you can look at the story, program, and so forth. You can clear all of that. So then basically your vibration goes up, your operating system changes, upgrades, and it doesn't matter the amount of polarized negative frequencies that are coming in. Your body will not receive it because it is already full of that higher vibration, so that lower vibration will not attach to it, and so forth. So, for example, cancer itself. Cancer itself, if you're looking at it, that's a code. That is an operating system that is very much part of the plug-in of a replication of a Lucifer operating system, which is basically consume to destruction, to elimination, because that's what a cancer cell does. But a cancer cell requires very low frequency, requires many things in your body to be a certain way for it to flourish. One is your state, main one. How do you feel about life? How do you feel about every aspect of your life? Emotionally, program-wise, stories, belief systems, and so forth is very instrumental to adjust the chemistry and the operating system, because the cancer itself is very easy to clear. The moment you change your state, it's already cleared. Because what do you need? For a cancer cell to survive, to be able to consume, it requires low frequency, meaning very acidic body. You cannot have a high pH body. You cannot have a powerful immune system. You cannot have, what's the other parts of it? There's 3 components. Low temperature, and it requires huge amounts of sugar content coming into the body in what we call the point that it would elevate. Those are just the chemistry components about it. But really, what's the program around it, it has all to do with our state. So as we change our state of how we see things and we get excited about life, and we don't have a back-end part saying, well, I'm going to leave using this to activate any part of it, that can't flourish. And we've seen it over and over again scientifically, and it's been proven that people can have massive amount of tumors or cancer or whatever, and reverse completely. A lot of times you say, okay, well, the diet changed. Yes, the diet does play a role. However, what changes the diet? You start changing about the importance of your life. You're going to look at it and say, okay, I don't need to end my life at this point. I really want to enjoy my life, and so forth. Not about the fear of death, because that doesn't help. The fear of death does not instill high vibration. It's the excitement of life that instills high vibration. So that's what we're looking at. So all of that will shift accordingly. So if you're in the higher vibration, light, playfulness, be able to use your imagination, creativity, and all of that stuff, and really, letting go of all of the other polarity stuff and so forth, as you're clearing it at 0 point, at neutrality, you're not, you can't flourish something that would diminish your physicality or diminish any part of your experience. Hopefully that helped. Okay. Does the need to deprogramming the ego mean we should avoid any thought, activities, or at least thought wandering? I have a business activity which requires me a deep mind reflection. I take it as a game now, and I enjoy it very much. However, I've noticed that also a sort of an addiction. The reason why I wonder if it's right to continue even though I love that, all the more so as my business activity is related to marketing area, and so it is completely inverted 3D. I take it as a game. However, do I reinforce the matrix if I still work in this area? Also, I spontaneously think a lot every day, have a deep mental activity. Do we have to stop that? Okay. That's a big one. All right. So when you are going through the deprogramming of what means what, meaning what definitions, what stories, what programs, what belief system, what power the ego has. The ego is the grand story maker. It's the AI, and I won't even use the other word that we talked about. Not that I have an issue with that. Sometimes people are new and then they get involved. Okay. So, yeah, what we're going to do is to basically clear up all the stories around that, even seeing that whatever the dance is. Now, say you have a business that you are marketing, as the example was given in their particular scenario, or any other business that we're in. Okay, so a lot of the stuff that you may be marketing may be reflective of the organic, what do you call it, inverted matrix, inverted 3D, and 2D. You have the choice at this point in time to create on two ways. One is having, like you've pointed out, a deep understanding. This is just a game. However, I'm choosing to upgrade this game. So how can I now facilitate to create an environment that is conducive to this new world in my current profession that I'm enjoying? So you can have fun instead of convincing people to buy something in a way that will lead them to a path that may not be of higher vibration. You now can reshape it in a way saying, okay, it's just a game and I enjoy the game. How can I upgrade the game so that I'm now going to be marketing in what they can call ethical way, where I am now providing clarity of the services being provided. And if I'm promoting something that is not highly conducive physically, for example, just an example, food, whatever, just using an example, you can say, okay, this is great taste, whatever it is. You know, it's the way, if you want to have the experience of having a very powerful sensorial whatever, then this kind of meets that requirement or whatever that is. You're not going to create a deceiving idea around it. So it's really about connecting with yourself and really asking all aspects of yourself that's involved, okay, from a higher perspective. I am in this particular role and I enjoy the role. How can now I be of best of service, not only for myself, but also for the collective? Show me different ways that I can use different levels of creativity that will support, and just allow that to shift. Okay, the addiction may be the addiction of having outcomes, being successful, or whatever it is, right? You want to get to the point where you don't use that as a reference point. You basically want to clear that part of it. So you're saying, okay, I enjoy the game, and the game is to provide a certain whatever, environment or belief system or whatever it is at that point in time, but I want to do it as conducive as possible. Then what happens, it shifts from that type of addiction to a holistic sense of accomplishment and not from an ego perspective, but in a sense of feeling that I am a contributor, and a contributor for the well-being of humanity as we move forward. So it's really a shifting all of that. Do you have to stop it? You may change certain parts of it that is, you feel from a higher perspective that is not perfectly alignment. And if it isn't, you may eliminate certain parts, you may convert or upgrade the other parts, or you can shift it all together and use your skill sets to now create a different environment that is more conducive for the direction that we are going in our life. So sometimes you say, well, I got the marketing skills, but I'm going to promote something that's more holistic, or something that is more conducive for the well-being of humanity, or something of that nature, rather than the old modality. I can still enjoy the game or whatever it is, but now I'm focusing on something else. So it's really up to you how it resonates, because at that point in time, you're the one that decides how far do I go or not. Okay. Could you please share a little more about Franco's journey and the reason why he looks like he's getting older? Well, I mean, I suppose he has released a lot of his human journey. How is it that he is still in the aging process, whereas we are supposed to rejuvenate? Well, I don't want to start looking too weird from you guys. No, I did take it on because for a period of time, for the longest period of time, I had stopped aging. In fact, for the longest time, I was getting asked IDs in my 30s, meaning that if I was even 20. And then even in my 40s, I looked like in my 20s and so forth. And it was just like, okay, something's not matching because everybody else around here is looking. So I wanted to activate that part of it. And I activated it, but I haven't stopped it. Now, it has slowed down tremendously and it is slightly reversing. So it isn't a reversal process. Yeah, okay, I'm 62 years old. Do I look that age? No. However, I don't look too far from it, possibly, in that sense. But it's because I allowed it to age. And there's several of us that never aged that I know of that I've connected with. And then we activated that part of it because we were so not aligning. However, I've started it, but we're all starting it. We're noticing as we get more excited and whatever else, and especially as I'm doing this work, I mean, I'm supercharged right now, feeling these energies going in. It regenerates the body and actually reverses a lot of the process. And as we're moving along, we don't have to give the same level of connection to this to the process of aging because of life. Now, I have friends, well, I shouldn't say friends that I keep huge acquaintance to, but there are the people that, I grew up with at different stages in the journey of life. And I've noticed that, they look much older than I do, by far, in essence. And they're very close to my age, some a little bit younger, but some of them are just a bit older. But in essence, there's like a huge difference. So in this particular case, yes, I allowed myself to follow that path, but the reversal process has started, as many of us are choosing to reverse from that. Okay. All right. My second question, so I guess this is from the same person. My second question is about the releasing process. Is it normal to note that for a same emotion or same issue, for example, fear, the process of releasing has to be done again and again, since the same emotion still shows up? Franco tells us it's easy to clear out our blockages and other bad stuff now. However, I encounter a situation of never accomplishing clearing. What is wrong with me? Well, just go playful. There's nothing wrong. If you're talking about fear as an example, and this applies to all of us, we want to clear the fear. The key here, yes, energetically, consciously, and everything around us is supporting us to move through our programs a lot simpler, easier, faster, more efficient. Fear is a very powerful thing. For example, let me give you an example. You got fear. Oops. So you have fear. That's the nucleus. Fear can be attached to many different things. So you say, okay, I want to clear fear. There are ways you can do so, but then there's links to it, and these links would be stuff that we establish that reinforce the fear. The fear of not being good enough, the fear that you can be harmed, the fear that you can be a victim, the fear that you can lose, the fear that in one way or another that something can harm you or someone can harm you, the fear of a virus, a fear of accident, fear of many, many things. These were all at one point or another established in different stages of our lives, and each one placed with this whole fear component. this one was interesting because several years ago, I was working with people and we were going into clearing fear, and I noticed that the fear wasn't that easy to clear because we had to start addressing the different stories. So when you have fear, for example, coming up, the first thing is every time you experience the emotions of fear, allow yourself to feel it. Allow yourself to be present with the fear. Don't suppress it and don't express it. No suppression, no expression. That applies to any emotions. Be present with the emotion. Feel the fear. Look at the fear. Be part of the fear, whatever you may feel. By doing so, you actually are not creating polarization or labeling of a story. You just see it as an experience. You just allow yourself to be in the fear. So the emotion of fear is going to dwindle or reduce. At that point, then you can ask yourself, and you write this down. So you write on your piece of paper, fear. Then you go right on next to it and say, what am I afraid of? I'm afraid of this. Write it out. What else am I afraid of? I'm afraid of this. Write that out. I'm afraid of this. Write that out. And just keep writing, because you'll notice you'll be targeting a lot of these things. I'm afraid of falling. I'm afraid of whatever. Afraid of being rejected. I'm afraid of being harmed. I'm afraid that something is going to happen to me, or whatever it is. You want to write them all out. You're going to write them out, each one. And just keep asking until there's no more. Other ones may pop up later. But at the same time, then you go to each one and you now look at those fears. And you say, okay, I'm afraid of this. Why am I afraid of this? What do I believe? What is my thought around that? Well, you remember that happened to you when you were a kid. Yes, I understand that. I acknowledge that fully. But what made me attached to the idea that I needed to be afraid? Well, because you saw this, this, and that. You start dissecting and you ask yourself, do I need to still support any of this fear around that? Whatever may have happened, what the story was, what you were told, what you saw, what you experienced through movies, whatever it was. So you're going to go through this one, say it's the first one on the list, you're going to go through this one and dissect and get to the core and then really understand what that fear is. And then you ask yourself, do I need it? If not, you acknowledge that fear, acknowledge that story. Really, it's the story, a belief system, label, whatever definition there is. You acknowledge it, and I acknowledge it fully. I acknowledge it fully, completely, 100%. I acknowledge it, see it for its full potentiality of what it looks like, what it represented to you, all of that. Then from there, you go into appreciation. You appreciate it. You spend the time to appreciate that experience, that story, that program, that perception, that idea, whatever that may have been, has been instrumental to create different experiences for you. Don't polarize it. So if you see it polarizing, you want to make sure that you get clear that part too. Don't see right, wrong, good, bad about any experience. See it for that dimension of what it is. So you see yourself experiencing, acknowledging and then appreciation for the experience that's provided for you. Giving yourself the opportunity to really get to the level of appreciation. And then feel the love of you, the creator, the utilizer, the labeler, or whatever it is. It doesn't matter even if it's the ego that was involved. Acknowledge the ego, thank the ego, love the ego, and let the ego go. So basically put the focus on that. And then what you're going to do is, as you're doing that, once you've cleared every aspect of it, this is gone. And then you work on the other ones, the next one on the list. And you look at those fears. What you're doing, you're being strategic, can't even say the word. But anyways, you're going to go bit by bit through them, and you're going to clear it out. That way you clear it out completely. I know some people say, well, I just would like to wipe out the whole thing. There's a possibility to that, and it's very possible to do. However, if you find that it's not working for you, then going through one by one has an importance to you at that point, because there's some form of learning that's sitting there that you haven't gained. There's a consciousness of awareness that's there waiting for you to discover, access, and so forth. So by going through that, you're going to look at not only programs, patterns, and so forth, but also the lesson in it, or the diamond, or the nugget that was there for you to re-empower yourself. Because once you're looking at through this, when you're going through that, what you're doing is self-empowering, and you're seeing that those things are not necessary for you. We are doing a workshop. I think it's next weekend, not this coming weekend, the following. If not, it'll be the following weekend after that, depending on how things play out. We haven't posted it yet, but we will. That will go through the different process, which we'll do together. That one is called the deprogramming, clearing, and self-empowerment, or empowerment. So stay tuned for that one. Okay. Starting to run out of juice here. Okay. We didn't make too much progress as I intended. But, you know, each one is very instrumental and it helps. Is there a way to attune the chakras without needing to go to a professional? Well, yes, there is. Okay. So what I would suggest at this point in time is what you can do is just go into a relaxed state, close your eyes, be focusing on the breath, get to that quiet state. And then what you're doing is you call in a column of light from source. That means this is you. I'll draw another you in my great artistic capacities. So what you're doing is you're calling in the highest aspect of source essence as a beam of light, a column of light, to go right through you. Basically aligning your crown, your third eye, your throat, your heart, your solar plexus, your sacral, your root. So basically what you're doing is bringing that light right through. And you just basically command forth. I align all chakras, restore correct directional spin, correct speed of spin. I clear all blockages and barriers that have been established, and I also allow the veils and I guess blockages to start to be removed. So you may have to go one by one, where you put your focus on your crown and just put your energy on the crown. Then you can do the third eye and so forth. So I'm just going to do one. You're going to go to the crown and you just put your attention to the crown at that point, after you've done all of that, and you now ask it to activate in its fullest form that it's ready for you at this point in time. So you can see it open up. It's like an opening flower in a sense. It opens up, and the crown chakra itself receives source and essence, energy and consciousness in a sense, and it uses it to receive the highest levels of codes that come through at this point in time. So you can open that up. Third eye, same thing. That's, you just see it open up and allow that to receive. And then you go through the throat, you go through the heart, and all the different chakras. It takes a bit of a process, but yes, you can do it. So first align them all, clear everything up, put everything back in the correct order, and then one by one, go through it. If you find it a bit of a challenge, then you may be able to connect with somebody that can, but you don't have to go to a professional. The reason that you go to someone that's specialized with that, sometimes they can notice if there's something that's blocking at that point that you may not be able to access, because some people find it difficult to do that process, but because their mind gets in the way. But you got to stay as quiet as possible, and don't expect it to be done in 10 minutes. You have to go through it, and if you only do one or two first, you can repeat that at a later date and do the others. But I would suggest, make the time and go through it. Okay. How can someone remove energetic blocks to source or planet Earth? Okay. a lot of times what happens is because of all the stuff that we're playing out with and experiencing on the planet at this point in time, we tend to disconnect ourselves, okay? So we create a block from connecting to the planet because, for example, let's do the planet first, okay? A lot of times we find that we adopt the energy, belief systems and so forth, that the planet is violent, that the planet in a way is something that we have to shield ourselves from, protect ourselves from. And this is from programming and so forth that we see that, you know, Gaia is and then I'm not saying everybody, but a lot of, most majority of the people find that the planet itself emanates something, but that's just a belief system that was put in from, you know, the operating system, not the true operating system, the modified operating system through the ego, judging and comparing and saying, okay, no, we can't ground ourselves because it, you know, I see how Gaia, or what we call Earth, you know, has all these intense scenarios throughout the whole planet, not realizing that it's actually very, very supportive for us. So what you're doing at this point is that when you're allowing yourself, you know, again, close your eyes and so forth. And if you could do it outside, can do it where your feet are on the ground, is very helpful. And if you can't, then you can just envision yourself removing any blocks around that and just allowing like roots going into the ground, going into Gaia and connecting with Gaia. And you can see the light energy moving through Gaia and through your body. So you're basically clearing that off from the bottom of your feet. So because your root chakra is your connection point to Gaia. Okay, so you can see it from your root chakra, which is at the base of your spinal cord, but it can also stem down your legs to your feet, and then see yourself, these roots going in, and make a connection with that. So if you're standing outside in the dirt, at this point now, asphalt doesn't work, so you have to do it basically the ground as close as possible. Concrete's pretty good too, but in essence you want to be in as much natural as possible. The grass, yeah, is good too, but it does interfere somewhat. So you want to get to that, and just allow yourself to extend. But if you can't do it that way, just close your eyes, envision, and just see yourself connecting with it, and then allow that to take forth that movement back and forth. So you're clearing that part. So planet Earth. The other one is Source. Basically, it's opening up the crown chakra, and that's your 7th chakra, and allowing yourself to see that opening and let those energies come in, let source codes come in and so forth. A lot of times we block it off because we get into the thing that source essence is overwhelming or something of that nature, and to do it. Now, there's different forms of source too, not to confuse you. So you want the pure source consciousness that is coming through your from your crown chakra, but your third eye is also receiving other aspects of yourself that are all aspects of source. Your heart, the same thing. Your soul is a facet of source. It has its frequency and it's able to share. The same thing with the human entity as part of that sourceness, and also your body is part of that sourceness. So those are all the different levels of sources. So you can bring in all of those parts. So it's really about a lot of the blockages that we create is through emotional charges or feeling violated or feeling that in some way something is safe. So we start shutting down certain parts, or we feel overwhelmed. So it's basically just allowing all those parts open up and let that flow. So envision and feel and experience those flows. Okay? Okay, how can you, this will be the last one. Let's see what the next one is. I might cover the one after that. Okay, how can you end the contracts that no longer serve? This is happening all the time. We can end it at any time. The moment you feel that something doesn't serve you any longer. Now, when I say that, what you have to understand, what serves and doesn't serve is not what you feel like you like or don't like. If you're judging an experience, that does not mean that it no longer serves you, because it's still serving you as long as it's pushing your buttons. It's still showing you polarization until you clear out the polarization. So if you feel that you're in an agreement of some sort or contract of some sort that does not feel in alignment because you've changed, you've expanded, it doesn't, playing there replicates an older energy, that you're not part of that anymore, you just say, I completely clear all contracts, agreements, and so forth. I negate it, clear it, and so forth. I am now establishing my own level of self-governance and self-directing at this point, and I create whatever serves me for the highest good right now, highest good for myself and everyone concerned. So it's not, you can end it at any time. Especially now, it's easier than ever before. But if you have an issue, for example, you may have an agreement with a particular partner, friendship, whatever it is, right? And to play a particular role. Now, you will change. You can be in a marriage, it can be whatever. You've changed. If the alignments don't occur any longer and they are choosing to play at one level, you're moved on or whatever, or vice versa, then you're going to see that, okay, we no longer have to play this any longer, so you can just say, okay, we choose to cancel all agreements that we have had, all contracts and whatever else. So the contracts can change. Even in my own contract, I had a contract to be on the planet for 120 years, to go here to 2077. And at that point, even 3 or so years ago, I almost exercised the of canceling that contract, and it did in a way. And then I kind of renewed it again because I had to go through my own particular process to evaluate my journey, my role, whatever I was here to do, and see if I can still continue in a way where I would be able to do what I came here to do, for example. So yeah, the contract is always renegotiable or to end it. So if it doesn't serve, you will feel it. No longer serves, we no longer have to maintain it. Okay? This one's a little faster. Okay. Do the previous clearings activations that Franco made some years ago still work to this date, or would they be irrelevant since energies are always evolving? Most of all of the clearings activations that I've done were already super advanced, and the words that are used, the energies that were used were quite broad. However, the recipient, the participant, only used how much they can. So I've had lots of feedback from other people too, is that when they go repeat it, very much so that it feels very different, but much more powerful, because they're much more in a receiver state for those higher states of frequencies that would be transmitted. So what I can say about that is that, yes, they're active. Now, the new ones that I'm doing actually adds a few little extra things to it. However, they're always upgrading. Even the information upgrades, because I've had people that listen to some of my content from years ago, a decade or so ago, and they've come back and say, wow, that was like profound. I didn't even remember hearing any of that. Or, and this is why I always say repeat the content, because it stimulates more and you're much more recipient of it. So I would say the old clearings and activations are they're constantly upgrading and very powerful, and they're still very in alignment with where we're at this point. If you're doing also some of the new ones too, they're of course stimulated much more, and there's more like-minded people coming together to do it. But at the same time, all the people that were involved when that was put together, when I say involved, when I did it live, the links that were created, they've been upgrading too. So in essence, yeah, so the answer is it's still very active, very relevant, and yeah, use it. You can feel it within yourself, how it serves you or not. Okay, so the next one's going to take a bit of work, so I'm not going to cover that one. We're going to end it here. We're already at 2 hours and 16 minutes, so thank you again. we have many more questions. So I'm going to cover some more on Thursday, this coming Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. And whatever we get covered tomorrow, get covered on Thursday, will get covered. The rest of them will be kept, and I will plug in some more at a later date. Because I'd like to carry on with the next phase of the episode. So we're going to be going to episode 20 after that, and 2021, and go on. And I'm going to cover various things. So we're going to plug in. So today was part 2 of the questions. Thursday's part 3. Saturday we're doing a global meditation, another global meditation on different themes that will, advance us even further. Please repeat the first one. Each one will support. Each time you do it, it enforces more. So that one was love and appreciation. The second one was love and oneness. And I don't know what the third one is at the moment. The name of it escapes me at this moment. So I guess I'm not to share it, but it will be posted possibly tomorrow, the latest. And please share it and far as wide as possible. So the more of us that are involved. And hopefully that we won't have any more issues with the Facebook, because we'll do Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and LinkedIn, and Vimeo, of course. So we will be transmitting on all those platforms. The recordings will be available. At some point, I'm going to put some of the questions in the description. There's only so much space we can add, so I'm going to have to make it really short point and with the time, so that you know where to access. But that might take a day or two before I can get to that, or when Kimberly can get to it when she has a chance. So we'll see how that all works out for you. But right now, yeah, go out and play, have some more fun. Thank you for all your contributions. Thank you for supporting us, and we look forward to future supporting. It gives us the opportunity to keep all our technologies going and supporting ourselves, so we can spend much more time providing much more content for you. This is a very pinnacle, powerful time at the moment, and the self-empowerment, and really getting crystal clear how we can move forward and how we can, expand our consciousness and so forth, because everything changes with consciousness, really, because nothing changes without the consciousness, without us accessing more of ourselves, more of our awareness, and to go beyond of what we've constructed at that point in time. So in the description of wherever you are, there's a link for you to share. We appreciate any support financially and otherwise that you can provide us. I thank you for the ones that have. And we also have a link to my webpage. If you want to be part of the community, just sign up on there, so you will receive emails of different events and things that are coming up. We don't overuse it. And then the last link is also the link to Teachable, which has all the different workshops that we've already done, and even the latest one. And I think that the upper link from all the links before, that has the last workshop we did. So yeah, anyways, I think I've covered everything there. I can't fade black here because there's nobody to operate the thing, so I'm going to gently walk away, and then I will shut everything down. So thank you again for this co-creation and for coming together, and thank you for being open, for allowing yourself to be a very powerful conduit in this change in this world that we are doing right now. We've come together to do this. This is not isolated as one individual, as a savior or anything of that nature. Absolutely not. And there is no saviors, including our extraterrestrial friends that are supporting us. They are doing everything possible without removing our capacities to be the self-empowered state and to navigate and direct and shape and co-create our reality, what we call our Earthscape. They're only facilitating to really illuminate who we are, and possibly illuminate some of the background things that's going on, and to take away any of the so-called toys that may bring us to the point of self-extinction. So anyways, enjoy, go have fun, and we'll see you